afternoon, welcome to the UK Column News. A little bit late this morning. It is the 23rd of September 2014 and it's about 1:05. Myself, Louise Collins, Brian Gerrish and Mike Robinson are here in Plymouth. Bit of a sticky day.
A sticky day. There's not a lot of weather in the chat box at the moment, so I think we'll postpone that. But it's definitely autumnal here in Plymouth. It is afternoon. I'll just make that clear to you.
It all just rolls into one. We've got some guests coming on very shortly. Two UK Column members who have been very, very active, and they are Mark and Jason, and they are up in Rotherham with a lady called Joanne. So we're going to be hearing Joanne's story in a very little while. Brian, your first stories you want to start with before we go over to Mark and Jason?
It's just an interesting little thing. This was sent in to us and I thought I would actually put it up on screen. So it was something that was being tweeted around. We're not saying that it was 100% correct. It's interesting to see what the independence referendum in Scotland has created. So here we are. It says, so there's a lady called Sonia apparently talking, just off the phone to the SNP and had quite a lengthy phone call. If SNP win 50% of the 59 Scottish Westminster seats, which is 25 seats, then we have legal mandate to declare independence, let alone mandate for Indy 2. Would we do that? We would definitely mandate for a second referendum, as that is the fundamental policy of the SNP and is not going to go away. If SNP were to win more seats, say 30 to 59, then ram the referendum. We take our independence based on a massive majority. It's called electoral law, and Westminster don't have to like it. It's the way things are set up. So we're just saying, is this truth or is it Twitter rumour mill? Or actually, are we starting to see treason at work within the SNP? So this is the engineering of a breakup of the United Kingdom without proper mandate. And of course, if you have a look on YouTube at the moment, you'll see plenty of little film clips talking about vote rigging during the referendum, to which I say welcome to the club, because of course it went on across the country for the last general election. But what has the LibLabCon achieved in Britain? Well, we've now got more and more groups at each other's throats, seeking the promise of a better life, independence.
I think there's a lot of trouble over the weekend in Glasgow, Edinburgh and some of the cities, actually. Well, so congratulations, well, as you say, Cameron, Clegg and Miliband, you've succeeded
in stirring the trouble.
Exactly.
Well, what might Scotland get? Well, of course, Scotland might get a dictatorship rather than independence, and this is what we can expect. So Robert Greene, of course, on his 126th day under house arrest, still very patiently waiting for something apparently called a trial. Whether that's possible in Scotland now, we don't know. But that's not due to take place until January 2015. And of course, still absolutely no mention on mainstream media about Robert's plight. But this brings us in very nicely to what's happening across the country with a massive cover-up of child abuse.
Yep.
Perhaps that's a timely introduction for our guests.
I think so. Mark and Jason, are you there?
Hello.
Hello. Hi, and you're there with Joanne, and who's that with Joanne?
It is Holly, that's Joanne's daughter, the young girl that was in care.
Okay, so Joanne, thank you so much for being brave enough to come on today. Guys, how did you meet Joanne? And that was to reference Mark and Jason.
Well, we went to the initial hearing in Rotherham as town centre, that was at the town hall. And Joanne and Holly were outside with a banner on their own, really. So we first approached Joanne and started chatting and asking. I mean, the banner said it all, really, as well.
Yeah.
We couldn't get in, as we mentioned last time. So we kind of like got chatting from there, really. And the story is what we're hearing all over the shops. It's just amazing. Just amazing, the story.
Yeah.
But that was it, really, Lou.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I remember the video clip when you were outside the courts up there at Rotherham. Joanne, again, thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to tell us your story and just as a recap for our viewers?
Just before Ollie's 14th birthday, I was having real problems getting her into school. I'd lost most of parental control. I'd go so far as to say Ollie were in control of the situation at home. Very much encouraged by social services, as they had been, we had had contact with them previously. And so I felt I had no option but to put her in care, ultimately to protect her, hoping that she would get an education. But it just descended into organised chaos. There were no, I just had no control over anything what were happening to Ollie, no matter how bad it were. Social services were just happy for her to be sexually abused, not schooled.
And
they were unconcerned.
Was she in a care home, or was she? Did she go into a foster family?
Originally, she went into a foster family. Yeah.
Okay.
But, they were just they were taking her and dropping her off with abuser. He were on sex offenders registry with a 23-year-old. When I asked him about asking him for pregnancy tests, they were like, we're not here to discuss that. They will not discuss sexual exploitation here. They'll just say, we're not here to discuss that. And that's all his decision to make, no matter how old.
So from the foster family, she then went into the homes, did she? Or did she continue to be abused there, or did she stay with this foster family where they would continue, where the abuse continue taking place?
For a while, it wasn't actually taking place with foster family. It was where she was going from foster family, but ultimately they did know where she was going. I've just found out recently that she was given at 14 her morning after pill, so they were more than well aware.
Right, okay. So from there then Holly became pregnant, and social services swooped in straight away, did they, before the baby had been born, to take the child?
Straight away, before she'd even got home to tell me that the pregnancy test was positive, they'd already sent the drug squad into the house to let me know that literally they meant business.
Mm. And is it all right if we speak to Holly? Holly, how did this affect you? And after the child was taken, did you have concerns of what was happening to you may end up happening to your child?
Well, I don't think he's at risk of being sexually abused, but I think he's at risk of emotional abuse, which is just as bad. It's obviously a bit confused.
Yeah, and how long ago was this, Holly? How long ago was he born?
He was born last year in December.
And are you able to have contact with him?
Yeah, I see him once every 2 weeks now because the forced adoption up on there.
Brian, have you got anything to say or ask?
So can you thank you for that. Can you take us on a little bit further through the story? Because of course the thing that just resonated with us was when you talked about the accusations of arson. How did that happen?
I was still in care at the time. I'd stayed out. Nobody knew where I was. My mum knew I was in Sheffield. She didn't know whereabouts. And a few hours before I'd left children's home, a boy burnt an hole in a curtain with a cigarette. It didn't set on fire, it just burnt an hole. And nobody got into no trouble for him, obviously. He got shouted at. And then when I was picked up by police from this man's house, when they arrested me, they charged me with arson. And then I got moved out of area into a secure unit. But when I come back to go to court, there were no arson charges.
Right, and what were you supposed to have set light to if the charge was arson?
I was supposed to have tried to set a bedroom on fire.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
They were accusing me of setting a bedroom on fire.
Okay, all right. And then those charges just disappear. Nothing else is said about it. Right.
Yeah.
Have you had lawyers? Have you got some support? Have you got legal representation? And how have they been with you? You're smiling.
I've got before baby was born, I got a solicitor, But when we go to court, they just basically tell me to agree with whatever social services say.
Yeah.
Not much use.
Joanne, what about yourself? Have you had much legal representation? Have they been with you?
I think I'm more disgusted with solicitor than what I am with a social worker, because ultimately, you know, they're there to do a job. They're there. They're for Ollie, but they've just completely helped council and police whitewash all situation.
Right. And tell us how you ended up campaigning and meeting up with the team, so that you initially did that interview to camera. Was that out of frustration because you couldn't get any resolution through social services?
There were no other avenue open for me. That were all that were left to do. I feel I ain't got no option, but I've got to do this what I'm doing now, because otherwise nobody will listen.
We've had a number of media organisations as well that have been getting in contact and involved. And I'd like to point out that there is a factor here. When Holly was arrested for arson, as she said, she was arrested at the house of somebody who was abusing her. So she is being abused. The police are coming along allegedly to protect her, and it's the one that's abused that ends up being arrested. And this is a common theme all around this whole thing.
Twice that's happened.
And have the abusers been made to stood accountable for what they've done? Was there a police investigation?
No police investigation. No.
They got abduction notices, that were it.
So they're still free, and
Yeah.
and they still could be carrying on with what they put you through. They are still out there. And can I just ask, we see a lot in the press, in the mainstream press anyway, that it is sort of gangs from either Pakistan or Muslim gangs. Was that the case, or were they local? Were they British white men, or were they of ethnic minority or anything?
One of them were British white man, and another one that were from Sheffield, he were black. But I think they're just trying to say it's Asian gangs and stuff, so they can say that they didn't want to cause no trouble and be racist.
Okay.
Joanne, since your original interview, when you first met Mark and Jason, what's happened since then? Since you've done that interview?
I've done quite a few other interviews with various BBC, ITV, Channel 4, but you don't actually get any coverage about the story. It's been a lot about Crime Commissioner and Joyce Thacker, but not really. They don't want to solve the problem. It's not. They might want to know gory details about abuse, but it's not for this problem that we've got now, trying to protect baby.
Yeah. So what do you want? What would you like to see happen? As if you could click your fingers and a magic wand be waved. Yeah. What would you like to see happen now? You want the baby back within your care and away from social services, or?
Definitely.
Okay.
They're abusers. They're saying it may be at risk of emotional harm in future. Well, I'm saying it's definitely at risk of emotional harm in future with them. They're all predators. They shouldn't be near children. They shouldn't have their own children. They mind about being in judgment of other people. Or there to judge anybody. They're disgusting.
Yeah.
Are you able to tell us who you've actually dealt with in the local council, who you've taken your case to?
You can't get past receptionist on phone to get through to anybody. A solicitor, a social worker, the manager, an MP, a councillor. You'd be lucky if you find an email address. That's about it.
We've had some help from John Hemmings.
John Hemmings has been in touch now, because I did manage to get through to John Hemmings, and he is going to try and help Ollie. But obviously he's a very busy man.
Yeah, but this is a very common theme, that when people actually try and even speak to people inside the council, every avenue is blocked. And I know that this has been one of the big problems for Mickey summers there in Nottingham that he said, he literally had to batter his way into the council to get people to pay attention to him. Now he's got the ear of the opposition councillors. He's saying that they are just astonished at how much they didn't know. So you seem to be, describing exactly the same thing, that you try and deal with the council to get answers, to get resolution to things, but nobody wants to speak about it. Has it made a difference to be able to come into contact with alternative media and discover that there are people in this country very concerned about what's happened to you?
I feel like meeting these two were divine intervention, because if it hadn't been for this, I just don't know where we'd be, solid truth. Just be lost in it.
Right, okay, well that's a wonderful thing to hear, because of course we think this is absolutely part of the solution, that we get more and more people to help each other.
And speak out.
And speak out, and to be on the ground, because it's impossible for one group to be helping everywhere. So the key thing to us is to get people in communities to actually help each other, but be brave enough to speak out.
Is there any more that maybe the members could possibly do? Maybe write to people that our guys, like in our chat room, and our members can do to help you guys?
You are having a gathering. I don't want to call it a protest, but there is going to be a gathering outside Rotherham Town Hall on Saturday. It's coming Saturday, and they're encouraging mums to come who are against child abuse. Obviously, any decent mother is going to be against child abuse. But there's so far, I think there's 200 people signed up, isn't there?
Yeah.
200 people have signed up already, and it's going to be on Saturday at 1 o'clock outside Rotherham Town Hall.
Has there been a Facebook event created or anything on Twitter that we can pass to viewers so they can go and have a look at more info about it?
Yeah, it's on Facebook.
It is on Facebook. Yeah. Is there a
What's the name of it? Well, if you haven't got it now, guys, Mark, Jason, you can get that for us and let us know so we can put it up there tomorrow.
Well, if anybody wants to add me on Facebook, mine is facebook.com/Holmes and then the number 2. That's Holmes like Sherlock and then the number 2. If anybody wants to add me on Facebook, I can keep everybody updated then on what the events are.
Oh, here we go. Hang on.
Oh, here we go, yeah. Stop RMBC Child Snatchers. So that's Stop RMBC for Rotherham Metropolitan Borough Council Child Snatchers.
No, that's Rotherham money for banning childhood.
Yeah, okay. Rotherham money for banning childhood. I'm not going to argue.
Okay.
Well, Joanne and Holly, thank you so much for coming on and being brave enough to talk to us. I mean, I can't begin to imagine what you guys have gone through. And Mark and Jason, keep up the great work, boys. You're doing a great job. So we will stay in touch with you, and please give us updates on what's happening. And I know Mark and Jason will be there supporting you, you two, all the way.
And we'll talk about the event.
And we will talk about the event and promote the event for you this weekend.
Thank you.
Cheers,
guys. Take care.
Well, we're going to move straight on from that to Beechwood survivor Melanie Shaw. There are just incredible developments, things happening yesterday and indeed in the last few hours that are quite astonishing. So the news that we put out yesterday, and of course an excellent article put out by Anna Braga from neonnettle.com, was that Melanie had decided to go on hunger strike. She feels that this is the only way that she can start to put pressure on the establishment to pay attention to her plight. That compounds, of course, everything that's happening to her, because at the moment she's still being denied medication. She's still desperately worried about the condition of her leg ulcer. And there is no doubt that Sodexo, the prison running HM Prison Peterborough, has been throwing away things like Manuka honey, which people have sent into her. One elderly lady sent in quite a big jar. She said, I can't really afford this, but I'd like Melanie to have it. And in the letter to the prison, she said, if you cannot give it to Melanie, please can you return it? And she had included a stamped addressed envelope for that honey to come back, but of course it was thrown away. So terrible things going on inside the prison. And Melanie is now on her 61st day. And we're just going to keep pushing this point that the Crown Prosecution Service, of course, busy losing evidence in Manchester, has still not come up with any full evidence against Melanie. So things are happening, and Facebook page set up.
Absolutely. UK Column official Melanie Shaw group has been set up. And I just need to say hats off to everybody in there. Lordy from our chat room, Azra from our chat room, Michael from our chat room, Terry, Jeanette. They have all been working their little socks off. Letters have been written to every news agency in the country. Politicians have been written to. And, I mean, it's just hats off to everybody who is working so hard. So far, as of yet, it was set up Saturday. There haven't been any trolls coming in, but we have got a big, strict policy. Any agitators or disruptors or going off the subject of Melanie and any trolling, they are going to be banned. But everybody is working together. So, UK Column viewers, if you are watching and you can come up with any ideas, please go to the UK Column official Melanie Shaw group. And, well done to everybody in there. It's just been incredible. You've blown me away.
So all of the mainstream media outlets informed, and we are patiently waiting to see something come into the mainstream press. Of course, BBC Nottingham, totally silent.
We're setting up a wall of shame, actually, for all the politicians that
are not doing
pass
anything.
the buck to say that they can't help. So we're going to be setting up a big wall of shame because all MPs have been written to. So watch that space for that wall of shame.
And of course, the important thing is that Melanie is now very happy to effectively show her face. Some bizarre people on the internet have been saying, well, this story can't be real because Melanie Shaw doesn't exist. Well, what nonsense. Here is the lady. And as we were pointing out yesterday, while Sam Morton, a victim, is all over the mainstream media, none of the mainstream media want to touch the case of Melanie. If you want to use this image, it's now quite widely available on the internet.
My profile picture on Facebook.
You can do this. This is a real person who is a victim, suffered unbelievably horrible things. And what has the British state done with her? They've accused her of arson. Amazing coincidence there with the interview that we've just had. So Melanie's accused of arson. And I can't reveal the source, but somebody told us this morning that people within the local authority environment were astonished that Melanie wasn't out because they said, we thought somebody was picked up for the arson weeks ago. So even within the public sector, there's puzzlement as to the length of time that Melanie has stayed in prison.
Can you just flash that bit of paper in a minute as well to say we...
Okay, let me just do this one because, of course, the other thing that astonished us was late yesterday afternoon, it became known that there was a court case to be held in Nottingham Crown Court, number 5 court, at about 10:30, and the Nottingham law firm VHS Fletchers had actually tweeted out that there was going to be a hearing. We had spoken to Melanie late yesterday afternoon. She was totally unaware of any court case. And as you'll see with some of the slides in a minute, we've confirmed that a court case did take place this morning. We have no idea whether Melanie was there. And of course, there is a problem at the moment because Melanie has told a number of people in writing and verbally that she had sacked VHS Fletchers some days ago. So we're very puzzled as to how they could be participating in a court case, and we have no idea whether Melanie attended or not, and that's significant, as you'll see. But what have the MPs been up to?
Well, this is one of the guys in our little group. He managed to get a screen grab last night. Here is Chris Leslie walking in to the Labour conference alongside Ed Balls there, and there he is sitting down enjoying a nice evening. clapping away to, no doubt, his leaders. And there have been many Twitter storms going on saying, what are you doing to help Melanie Shaw? And nothing as yet has come back.
To my mind, Louise, wouldn't the conference be a perfect venue for an MP with some guts and some substance to speak out and to tell the assembled company what is actually happening to child abuse victims in UK? But he's not interested in that. He's there with the suits and the smart dresses, and this is New Labour. Creating a new society where clearly victims are to be victimised.
Was she not also, she did some volunteer work for this gentleman as well? Is that not right?
We understand that's the case.
Exactly, and that's how he goes and thanks her, by not standing up and supporting her. Shame on you, Chris Leslie.
So what's happening
here?
Okay,
here we go. One of the guys, thank you, Terry, for posting this up in our little group. She's been messaging Zach Goldsmith. So here is one of the responses he sent. He went, "Dear Terry, as discussed, I passed on your email to Chris Leslie MP, and I've received an acknowledgement to say that it arrived safely at his office. He has emphasised that MPs do not have the power to overturn a court's decision and are not at liberty to discuss sensitive details of a case with third parties such as me or you. That said, he does seem to be on the case and remain in contact with Miss Shaw."
But we can say this doesn't appear to agree with what we're being told by Melanie. Yes, she has had a letter from Chris Leslie, but what doesn't seem to be happening is now a daily contact, which is about how Melanie is released from prison as quickly as possible. Exactly. So the common excuse from MPs, they believe that it doesn't matter what criminal activity goes on in the country, they're only responsible for justice, law and order for an event that happens in their own constituency. This, of course, is a total lie. This is simply an old boys' agreement within Parliament that an MP doesn't get involved with constituents of another MP, but it's now being used by many, many MPs to simply turn a blind eye to criminality and child abuse in this country. Pretty disgusting.
Well, Terry actually gave a response to Mr. Goldsmith, and she said, Chris Leslie is complacent as far as I'm concerned and has a duty to investigate this case. There is a total news blackout. BBC Nottingham are not interested in the story. The whole story is shocking and unjust. This story is going viral on Twitter and everywhere now as more people are becoming aware of Melanie's plight. Chris Leslie will come out of this with his reputation tarnished if he doesn't do something positive. Thank you, Zach, for your help so far.
So, of course, Zach Goldsmith has put his name forward publicly as one of the key MPs fighting to stop child abuse. But I'm going to say, as yet, although there is a group of MPs who are supposedly active in Westminster, I don't yet see the key action being taken, which is for these MPs to call a press conference, to get all of the mainstream media there, and then simply to tell the real stories in front of that assembled company. So we constantly see MPs running away from any form of interaction with BBC and the rest of them.
Can I just interject? There is now being calls on the Facebook group. They've come up with a suggestion of a silent vigil outside Peterborough Prison for Melanie, probably around her birthday, which I believe is around the 3rd or 4th of June. So there's October,
7th of October.
7th of October, but it'll be looking at the weekend before. And also, if anyone can assist in getting some sort of quiet gathering outside BBC Nottingham again, so they raise awareness and they start reporting on Melanie's case. So, Lordy, if you're a member of the UK column membership, you can go into the forums and put any suggestions in there to Lordy, or come into the group and message us in the group of what can be done. So,
and we just reiterate, we did mention this yesterday, the reason that we're really focusing on all this is because, of course, if we can't trust our MPs to protect our children and bring child abusers to book, it's pointless trusting them on anything else, whether it's foreign policy, the NHS, the economy, education. At the moment, British MPs clearly condone the actions of paedophiles, why should we be surprised at any other ridiculous decision they make? Yeah. Well, let's follow this story through, because here we are. This was part of a tweet from VHS Fletcher's. Now, Melanie says categorically she's sacked this law firm because they simply aren't performing. There's also some questions that have been raised about clerks representing themselves as solicitors. Now, maybe that's just a little bit of confusion in the courts, or a little bit of confusion with Melanie, but it seems to us there's some questions to be asked. But here it is, Melanie's case listed at our request in Nottingham Court tomorrow to resolve issues in the case. Please see the public list later for time. Now, we understand that the minimum time limit to list a public case is 7 days, but here we've got a case being listed with only a few hours to go. And where did that take us? Well, late last night, 23 minutes past midnight, it was possible to actually download Nottingham's Crown Court list. If I just highlight it at the bottom, here we actually see that there's supposedly going to be a mentions hearing. Now, this is sort of an old boys chat between the judge and legal teams. At the last one of these concerning Melanie, the public were not allowed to attend, but something's wrong here because these are being listed as public hearings. But there's the critical thing, defendant to attend. And we can say with total confidence that at around about 4 o'clock yesterday, Melanie certainly had no idea that there was a listing for her to attend court. So, of course, not only would she not have been able to prepare herself for this hearing, it's quite possible she might have taken quite a strong dose of her medication overnight, and that would have left her in a very poor condition to actually speak in the court. And I'll just take it on one more, and then I know you're keen to come in, Louise. Here we are, taken straight off the lawpages.com this morning. And what we can see here is a notification that the Melanie Shaw case for mention, brackets, defendant to attend, that the case started at 10:58. So we have, I'm going to say, no idea what's going on here. We have a law firm who we have understood has been sacked by Melanie Shaw, has now called a meeting in court with a judge. It appears to be a private hearing. Melanie is listed to attend, but Melanie didn't know the case was happening. Is this simply incompetence and obfuscation in the courts, or is something more sinister at work? Personally, I think it's something pretty sinister.
Me too. All I'm going to say is they get in her head that she's going to be appearing in court for an appeal hearing, to completely get in her head, nothing there, and then they do this to her. Then they chuck one at her. They're just messing with her head, and it is disgusting.
Psychological bullying is what's actually happening. We'll keep you posted. We haven't got any more information on that as yet. The important thing will be to find out whether Melanie did or did not attend court, and we hope to know that later today. Well, if you're worried about the state of the legal system, the place to look is the Fabian Society. And thank you to the viewer who pointed out to us that the Fabians have been hosting meetings discussing how they should run our lives. That's the way it normally works. And the viewer said to us, we would like to point out that in this particular session, 8:30 to 9:30, Tuesday the 23rd of September, if you have a look at this, we've got Ian Murray MP, Shadow Minister for Trade and Investment, Seema Malhotra MP, Chair of the Parliamentary Labour Party Business Group, and Andrew Kaplan, President of the Law Society of England, Wales. And basically it's been, I think it's sponsored in association with the Law Society. So here we've got the political Fabian socialist agenda working hand in glove with the Law Society. Well, what sort of man is Mr. Kaplan? We thought we'd have a look at him. Here he is. And I suggest you go and have a look at this for yourselves on Legal Voice. But this was the bit that interested us. He said, so is the Law Society not interested in non-lawyer aided access to justice issues? I'm an idealist, says Kaplan, who chaired the Society's Access to Justice Committee for 4 years. I came into the law because I wanted to change the world like many of my peers. But we are a representative body. We consider our members are best placed to give advice where advice is needed. So basically here he is. He's interested in changing the world. That fits totally with the Fabian agenda. And what he's basically saying is, no, I don't agree that ordinary people should be able to conduct law in the courts as lay persons, lay advisors, or even as Mackenzie Friend, not such a good option. He's saying, no, best leave it to us, professional lawyers you can trust. Well, I think we're just seeing a bit of how lawyers work around the Melanie Shaw case. I'm going to pause there because I need a 10-second break to say the more we do this, the more difficult it is to continue, because it is so obvious the lies, fraud and corruption in our faces. So Law Society, what's the Law Society about? Well, aside from controlling its members, we now see it totally in bed with the Fabian socialist agenda.
This country just doesn't seem to have... What hope is there? What?
Because we've got to expose it, Louise.
I know we've got to expose it, but... It's, you know, but even here, Paul in the chat room's gone, I think I prefer Mike's economic gloom. Actually, for a change, I think I actually agree.
We're only telling the truth, and the bad news is that, or the good news is that we've got to understand what the problem is before we can fix it.
Well, go on, Mike's got something to say. Here we
go. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. We've got to know what the problem is before we can fix it. But there's got to be a willingness from every single one of us to get involved in fixing it. And that doesn't mean sitting watching this programme. That means getting out and doing stuff.
But
well, as we've just seen in Rotherham. I know, but we got to get people to do it, and they are starting to do it. So exciting times.
Yes.
Well, we need to speak about the Crown Prosecution Service because, of course, the Crown Prosecution Service put Melanie Shaw in prison with no real evidence. So if we could just bring this one up on screen, here we are. So the Times here has also been saying, well, there's got to be some form of investigation into the theft of video interviews of sex abuse victims. Now, how serious? Yeah, I mean, this is really serious, very vulnerable people giving the evidence. What does the Crown Prosecution Service do? Now, it's still not clear where these tapes actually went because there is a film organisation called Swan Films, but basically when people have checked it through, it actually just leads to one man in a residential road in Manchester. And here's the Manchester Evening News. Data protection watchdogs to launch probe into theft of computers. Boom, boom, boom. And if you read this story, which I'd encourage you to do, it actually then starts to highlight a few issues. A spokesman said investigators will be talking to all parties involved and confirm we're aware of the incident and will be making inquiries. Swan Films says it offers audio-visual services and is understood to be based on Winstay Grove in Fallowfield, although other premises are believed to be used. The Manchester Evening News has repeatedly attempted to contact Swan Films. A man answering a phone number listed on the internet refused to answer any questions or make any comment. It does not appear to have a website. Now, this is exactly what we found yesterday. So we've one company that admits on its website to having contracts with the Crown Prosecution Service called Swan Films. They said, oh, it wasn't us, Gov, but there is a man in Manchester who just happens to call himself Swan Films. Subcontractor? There's a good question. And so these very delicate films went to his private house. He gets burgled. Amazing coincidence. They disappear. The police can't find the abusers, but they can track down the videos pretty quickly. And then we're told, don't worry, nobody accessed that information. Well, I'm afraid I don't believe that. I think what we had here was a organised event in order to see what the evidence was ranged against certain people. And now the Crown Prosecution Service is saying, well, it wasn't our fault. What was the security in this country? Well, Alison Saunders, head of the Crown Prosecution Service, whose fault is it? Yours. And of course, your incompetence in this arena is matched also by your actions in putting Melanie Shaw, an abuse victim, in prison. Mike?
Exactly.
Can I just ask a quick question? Were you almost drawing the conclusion that perhaps the police may have been involved in the original theft?
Well, at the moment, Mike, across the country, and I don't enjoy saying this because we have seen a lot of progress, but we're in the police, but where child abuse is concerned, all of the information coming into the UK column over the last 2 weeks is that there has been a massive clampdown within the police to stop the truth coming out about the paedophile gangs. And we know that in the Metropolitan Police District that officers have been threatened by colleagues. You better make sure you don't report this. You better close this down. So the bits that all of the investigators are talking about, I certainly know Bill Maloney is looking at this issue as well, is of course we have senior police officers and judges and politicians who are abusing the children, and they wield immense power when evidence is just pushed out to people who clearly are not competent to handle it. Do I think it's a setup? Yes, I do.
Yeah, European in the chat room, he said he's waiting for someone to be named. We all are. We all are. The only names we're going to get out anytime soon is people who have died. They're protecting the people at the top, that's clear. So we must just wait with bated breath to see if any names start getting published.
However, what we can also do is make sure that Ms. Wolfe does not stay in her present position, because, of course, her position is untenable with the links that she has for people who are themselves implicated in abuse.
Yeah.
So where does this sorry trail of abuse of our children come from? Well, let's switch to somebody else, Richard Dawkins. Now, The Guardian here has got an article, young Adam Lee has written it, and he said, I used to think Dawkins was a wonderful man. I agreed with his view on life, but his ignorant sexism is now giving atheists a bad name. So very interesting to see this. But apparently there's been an interview with the Times magazine, which Political Fellcraft has picked up. London's leading atheist thinker, Richard Dawkins, has told the Times magazine a little bit of mild paedophilia between men and boys did no lasting harm, recounting his own experiences at the fingers of a schoolmaster who pulled me on his knee and put his hand inside my shorts. The zoologist told the Times that this kind of abuse was no big deal. He called it mild touching up and added, I don't think he did any of us any lasting harm. So that was the article. Very interesting that this is the type of agenda that's being drifted through the new political class. What have we got? Well, in our opinion, we've got British politicians, senior members of the establishment, that actually would like to normalise paedophilia, and therefore they don't really give a damn about the victims. And the sexualisation of children in schools is continuing with this little one.
I actually lost it a little bit on air yesterday. I had a bit of a rant over, well, not this story, but there was a story in Sunday's papers as it was revealed a school were testing children from the age of 11 without parents' knowledge for STIs, sexually transmitted infections. Well, today, the Royal Society for Public Health say schools should be offering tests during lessons time. And the reason for these tests, they say, is to raise awareness. Well, sorry, I think this is rubbish. I just think this is, again, another step to sexualising our children, and a way also to possibly gather DNA for some form of database. Sorry, I'm rattling my pen. Sorry, Mike. So that was this story. And then blow me over. This one I come across. These two creatures are going around colleges and universities for where kids are starting school at 16 and 17, and they're advising women to make sure they have an orgasm first in the bedroom and how to achieve those orgasms.
So they're dealing with people who are 18, 19 years old.
Just leaving home. Maybe some haven't explored the sexual path yet, and they're going to be to promote sexual activities and making sure the women have orgasms first.
And if anybody's interested, they might like to have a look at Exeter University Freshers' Ball from a couple of years ago, which shocked many of the parents locally by the fact that effectively many of the youngsters didn't have any clothes on. But the principal of the university seemed to think it was a good thing. We say that there's something nastier at work.
Yep.
It's not just in UK. This theme is cropping up in other places. Countdown to ZeroTime.com got a very interesting article here about a senator, I think from Iowa, Charles Grassley, and he's been pulling up the Obama administration because they tried to close down an investigation into the use of child porn within the Pentagon. They'd failed to examine 1,700 of 5,200 reports, and Pentagon says it isn't a priority. It's pretty similar to David Cameron and Miliband, of course, but he stuck to his guns, and the closed investigation has now been reopened. Well, that leads us nicely on to Hillary Clinton. And the Tea Party have got some extremely interesting information here, because they are proudly boasting that they have letters now linking Hillary Clinton directly with the Marxist agitator Saul Alinsky. So on the right-hand side of the screen is one of the original letters that Hillary sent when she was desperate to get a hold of a copy of Saul Alinsky's then latest book, Rules for Radicals. And that is a book that UK Column has mentioned many times, and we will continue to do so. So direct links between Hillary Clinton and the Marxist agitator and subversive Saul Alinsky. Let's remember what this man said. Basically, he says, in action, one does not always enjoy the luxury of a decision that is consistent both with one's individual conscience and the good of mankind. The choice must always be for the latter. Action is for mass salvation and not for the individual's personal salvation. To me, ethics is doing what is best for the most. So, really nice guy. Let's follow him through. LibLabCon are all involved with Saul Alinsky doctrine, and his book, Rules for Radicals, was actually dedicated to Lucifer. And as it says there, he believed there was no right or wrong in politics, only what was necessary to seize power. But significantly, he advocated subversion by infiltration of political parties and institutions by the use of community organisers. So I'm going to thank rashmanley.com for this excellent picture. And what they're picking up on is Saul Alinsky's praise of Lucifer, lest we forget at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement to the very first radical from all our legends, mythology and history. And who is to know where mythology leaves off and history begins, or which is which? The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom, Lucifer. So there's no ifs or buts there. And of course, Obama closely linked with Alinsky doctrine, but so is the British political system. And we remind you here, this was a Guardian report, and what it's saying quite clearly with Miliband's drive for Labour community activists, he was using the political theory of American activist Saul Alinsky in the 1930s. So here's to Labour men, of course, Marxists in their own rights from the family connections. They are supporters of Saul Alinsky and a man who believed in Lucifer. Well, bring in David Cameron, because we've got exactly the same thing, because he has said back in March 2010 that we need to get involved in big society as a guiding philosophy. And if we follow that through, what we will actually come to is the fact that his overall big society plan is based on the successful community organising movement established by Saul Alinsky.
Do you think he's describing his manhood there?
I don't think we could comment on that. But this man, unbelievably dangerous. Ugh. And I just wanted to bring a figure on his shoulder, Mike, if I may, watching the time closely.
Hello.
But here he is, Nick Clegg, of course, the man who's always in the background. He is there for the breakup of UK. He's not sure of his own nation state. And in conjunction with the Tories, he's obviously now a supporter of Alinsky. Why are we so interested in this? Well, if you understand Alinsky, you understand the drive for big society, and actually breaking down society allows the government to capture youngsters and take control of all aspects of our lives. So we are looking in particular at the drive to have paedophilia as a normal part of British society. That's what the government wants. If they can achieve that, of course, they destroy the family, and then they are close to total control of every individual. So Lucifer would have certainly liked that, and I'm sure Saul Alinsky would.
And there is a really good documentary on YouTube called The Clinton Chronicles, if you want to have a little look into the background of Hillary and her husband's antics back during the 80s.
We'll just end on the note that somebody has correctly said that David Cameron was measuring the size of his brain in that photo. We'll leave it there. Really, if we can deal with the paedophiles that are currently wielding power in our courts, in Westminster, in our police forces, and in the establishment as a whole, we are going to be well on our way to correcting the other ills that are affecting this country at the moment. So stay with us, stay on our reports on both Robert Green and Melanie, and we'll have some economic gloom for those who prefer that tomorrow.
Yeah, and UK column of Melanie Short official group. If you aren't a member, please join. No trolls, no agitators, no disruptors, because you will be gone. T-shirts, bumper stickers. Can I finish, Mike, before you interrupt? Thank you. And the new leaflets. Mike Robinson, over to you.
I just put my hand up.
Okay, off you go.
I just want to say, make sure you buy your conference tickets today.
Yes. It's going to be a good one, 1st of November. See you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.